Welcome to a Pulp Event podcast, brought to you by the Pulp Net, your link to the online world of the pulp magazines for over 25 years. Learn more about the pulp magazines through articles, blogs, bibliographies, links, over 100 episodes of this podcast, and much more at thepulp.net. In this Pulp Event podcast, Chris Kalb moderates a discussion about the pulp character, the spider, with authors Gary Phillips and Will Murray. Chris is co-publisher at Age of Aces Books and an expert on the spider. The panel was part of a celebration of 90 years of the great pulp heroes. This podcast was recorded on August 3rd at PulpFest 2023 in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Chris begins.
Awesome. Thank you. I'm glad everybody's here to celebrate 90 years of the spider. I know it's not 100 years like the last two panels, but there's lots to get through in 45 minutes. The spider, of course, the star of 118 pulp novels, also reprinted as paperbacks, the two spider serials, and of course a lot of different comics. We have two esteemed spider authors on the panel, and we're going to probably focus on the spider himself. The format is going to be frequently asked questions. And not actually like the ones you get on Wikipedia. I'm thinking more the questions that we ask each other as spider fans when it's like 3 a.m. in the con suite. But we do need to cover. Thanks, Bill. We do need to cover. We want to cover. Hopefully, through this, we can cover all of the spider history. What makes the spider distinct and special, and why it's been around for 90 years with such longevity. We want to start, of course, with the characters. The first one, of course, Richard Wentworth. He's a billionaire playboy by day and a dark avenger at night. Wow. We've all heard that before. But somehow he comes off as a much different kind of hero. And most of that is probably due to Norval Page's writing. So my first question for the panel, is Wentworth crazy?
I think the answer to that is certainly borderline.
Yes,
okay. I having read all the Norval Page spiders and having written the character, he's paranoid. He's manic depressive. He has a martyr complex. He's got a Christ complex. Yeah. That's 4 right there. You don't normally have all 4 of those in one human being. And there's probably a couple other things going on that I'm not, necessarily keyed into because I'm not a psychologist or a psychiatrist. But that's pretty intense. There's an early spider where when Norval Page is writing one of his very early spiders, and he said one of the secrets of the spider is he never despaired. And several issues later, the spider is plunging into black despair constantly in that book and books that follow. And I know some of his descendants. His great grandniece I've known for a couple of decades. There's something going on there. They said he's had some nervous breakdowns. One of his issues that I know of was when the stock market crashed. He was a newspaper reporter, and his father was wiped out in the crash. They lived in Richmond, Virginia, and he'd come from Richmond to New York City to be a journalist for the various newspapers. He was having to support his parents during the Depression, okay, his extended family, maybe other people too. So he learned to write well and fast and maniacally. And how much of that writing he loved and how much of it was to keep the extended family's head above water, I don't know. But when we go from your hero never despairs to he gets plunged into black despair frequently, no other, even in popular publications, Jimmy Christopher didn't have those issues. G8 was like this guy off a cornfield who became a pilot, middle American, typical, middle American off a cornfield guy, happy-go-lucky, fights demons, vampires, He doesn't have a problem with that stuff at all. I mean, this is horrible. Let me kill it. But that was how he was. The Spider was unique in that he was among pulp heroes and heroes in general. He was a tortured son of a gun.
Was some of that the influence of Rogers Terrell, who wanted emotional urgency, quote unquote, in the stories?
But I think the specific
the flavor,
Richard Wentworth phobias or whatever the hell they were, I think it's Norval Page. I think there's no doubt that it's Norval Page. Because, otherwise you'd see some of that in Jimmy Christopher or G8. I mean, G8 battled things just as bad as the Spider. He never cracked up. He never turned against Nippy or Bull and said, "You're betraying me. I'm going to have to kill you."
A lot of trust issues.
I mean,
with Richard
every damn loyal member of the Spider group, he would turn on at one point because he thought they turned on him. And it's like he was on a mission from God to eradicate the evil criminals who were persecuting him. And he was on a huge level of, I am a God of vengeance against these evil people who are consuming the world.
I'll say this, Chris, that when I first came to the Spider as just as a fan, and this is of course after reading stumbling upon Doc Savage and those great Bantam reprints, and then The Shadow, and and then sort of things get progressively darker, right? So you start with Doc, and he's
the shining light.
The shining light. He doesn't have any. I mean, yes, he has disguises, but he has no particular secret identity. He has a public identity. And then you get to the Shadow, and then the Shadow has his disguises, and he's kind of dark and sort of menacing, and has his own kind of demons. And then you get to Wentworth, and as Will said, I mean, it is kind of fascinating to think about him now, all these years later, all these decades later, in this kind of revisionist context. But clearly somebody. And Wentworth served in World War I, if I recall correctly, somebody who's been shaped and haunted by those things, which nowadays we would have in a character, right? PTSD, whatever it is, and to see that now played out in those years is kind of fascinating.
That's great answer. I appreciate all of a lot of people say that the Spider's insane because he's killing all these people, but to me, it's always been that he's the sane response to an insane world that Norval Page sets up. But on top of that, there's all of, I think, the complexes that he has, the trust issues, for lack of a better word, with his aides.
And there may also be some Southern Gothic stuff in here because, Page was from Richmond, Virginia, former capital of the South. They have long memories down there. And the family, I've done some research. I know some of the current family members who knew him or knew the people who knew him well. And I was doing research for them through newsandpapers.com, a simple thing. And it turned out that in the 1940s, a whole bunch of Norval's close family members started dying one after the other. His wife stepped on a rusty nail, tetanus.
What?
Gone.
Wow.
And earlier that same year, his wife's father died unexpectedly. I don't know the details. One member of the family that I'm not allowed to name died in an insane asylum.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow.
The several other family members, and again, I did this several months ago and some of this stuff, and the family was flipping out. We didn't know all these people died this close together. I mean, we knew some of it, but not all of it. But if you go from through the 1940s, like death, death.
Wow.
And it suggests that the family, had some of that Southern Gothic bad things happen to us,
Yikes.
kind of a thing. I may not be expressing it as clearly as I might, but a lot of Southern writers talk about the dark side of the South and all that stuff in terms of mental illness and tragedies and stuff. And we could certainly have them in New England or LA, but somehow it has a different here because the people of the South, especially the people of Virginia, tend to be very family oriented. If you here is my understanding in that generation, You know, and they still talk about it in the Page family. Well, you know, one of our descendants was the first governor of Virginia, and another was this, and another was that. And this one's a writer, and you know, the frame of reference is who's your family, what did they do, what's their notoriety. Up where I come from in New England, it's like, what do you do? You know, your family, you don't care about them. You know, we might, but you know, generally the frame of reference is, what do you do? You know, maybe what does your father do? Okay, but down there it's like, what church did you go to? You know, are you anybody? Are you connected to anybody? And that's still there, because when I talk to family members of the Page family, they talk about their connections to people who've been long dead, like it's important today. You know, so all that Southern mentality that Page brought to this stuff includes all this complex web of things that matter and things that don't.
Wow. I see what you did there. But it's perfect setup for my next question, which is, how do you write Richard Wentworth when you're writing the book? I mean, because obviously Norville Page brought a lot of himself maybe into it. And so what is your approach, both of you, when you're writing? Is there something special that unlocked for you in terms of trying to get that character on the page?
I'm more of an instinctive writer, so I just reread some Spiders, and I just plug into his psychology. Well, like being a channel, I just try to become. I've always said when I write these 30 stories, I don't write them from the perspective of the 21st century. I write it like I'm a contemporary of Norville Page's writing in The Spider, trying to be like him, and copying his vocabulary, his tone, whatever, and stuff comes out that's very surprising to me. It's like I'm plugged into this guy somehow because I would never write this myself. That's how I do it.
I think when I had the opportunity to write my Spider short story, and I also used Operator 5, and so Operator 5 got to be me in the sense of the guy who's looking at this guy, understanding that this guy is wound really tight. This guy, I mean, I kind of have to work with this son of a bitch, but I got to really be careful because at any moment, something else is going to happen with this guy. So I think, to me, it gave me a great opportunity to have to sort of put Wentworth on the stage as I understood Wentworth, having read, some of those Spider stories, but then also being able to say, I'm going to have Jimmy Christopher be able to sort of step back a little bit, and so through him we see this character.
Wow. Now, Will, you also wrote a story with Operator 5 and Richard Wentworth.
And G8.
And G8 was in there too. What was your approach to sort of putting these characters together in scenes and their reactions to each other?
Well, I was very conscious that in the world of the Spider, as well as the world of G8 and the world of Operator 5, Richard Wentworth would be a suspicious character despite his fame, his fame and fortune. So there's a scene in the book where things are happening, and the three of them are coming together, realizing there's a common threat. And Richard Wentworth, being arrogant, thinking he's the god of battle, the god of Avengers, whatever it is he thinks in his kind of strange brain, he's saying to those two, we've got to do this, this, and that. And they're looking at him like, we're deputized agents of the United States government. Everybody knows you're the Spider. We're not playing.
Of course.
You don't get to join in our reindeer games because he's an outlaw. He's a killer. And just because in New York society you're upper crust, everybody knows you're the Spider. I mean, that's one of the great things about the series. Everybody knows he's the Spider. They just can't prove it.
Right.
So, they go their way, he goes his way, and he goes his way in his arrogant way. I will do what I must do to defeat this menace, despite the duly authorized intelligence agents who also have their duty. I have my duty. My duty is a higher duty. He thinks he's serving a higher God and a higher purpose. And these guys are just, functionaries of the U.S. government. He was willing to work with them. When they turned him away, it's like, okay, I'm going to go off and do it myself.
Awesome. Let's talk a little bit about Nita Van Sloan This is one of the characters that really makes the series different. That the hero, the dark hero, has a girlfriend. She shares in his adventures. She's even been known to dress up as the Spider or the Black Widow in one case. And breaks Wentworth out of Sing Sing when he needs it. She's really,
That's
really
what girlfriends do.
really great. Really? You got to find me a girl that will break out of Sing Sing.
I'm telling you.
But the question for the panel is: should Nita Van Sloan marry Richard Wentworth?
In the sense of the trajectories of adult relationships, and this was a very adult relationship for the Pulps, that was where it would have to go at some point, because at some point, Wentworth was going to have to put down his guns. He was going to get too old, or he was going to get killed, and she got to marry someone else or no one else. I mean, I had this idea once that maybe at the end of the Spider series, he got committed.
Yeah.
That basically maybe what could they do with him? Right. Maybe he would never put down his guns, and he would just be a menace to himself and everybody else, and maybe he needs to be put away for a while.
Actually, I think that's funny. Maybe it was something other character I was thinking about, but I think that's the perfect arc for the Spider. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it makes perfect sense that he should just whack out. He just
guys like that always escalate. They always escalate. Yeah. They never chill out. They never calm down. No. Although Page did calm down when he went to the Office of War Information with Ted Tinsley. Supposedly he calms right down, stops wearing his Spider uniform, stopped acting out.
I hope so.
But you can. Yeah. But I think Richard Wentworth would have gone off the deep end eventually, and would have to be put away for his own good.
I mean, I think it's a great. I think it's a perfect ending for the character.
Ouch. Okay.
She has a commitment.
I mean, obviously they never get married because he doesn't want to disgrace her or whatever when he's revealed to be the Spider that everybody knows he is. But gosh, I want a happier ending. I see the Spider. Once the city's safe, Well, no, I guess that'll never happen.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Okay, so another character is Stanley Kirkpatrick, the police commissioner,
who seemingly doesn't know that he's a Spider.
Exactly,
or at least can't prove it. So
that's the question. Does he know?
Well, he knows. At some point he becomes convinced, but he can't prove it. The problem Norval Page had with these characters is he would write character arcs like he was writing maybe a trilogy. But the magazine was a monthly. And you can't wrap it up. So you see him bringing the characters to some resolution. Like they almost got married at one point. Yeah. And Richard Wentworth got put into the electric chair, and that would have been one ending. That would have been your ending. So you see these cycles where where Page, like a normal human being, is saying, I have these real characters, they're real in my mind, and this is the setup, and this is how it's playing out. There's got to be payoffs. So, late in the series, in the last Spider, Page actually wrote himself, Recruit for the Spider Legion. Yeah. There, he finally pays off the Kirkpatrick and Spider and Wentworth problem by Kirkpatrick suddenly seeing why the Spider must exist and why he has to operate outside the law, and he sort of reconciles to it. But again, the series had to keep going.
Yeah. Right.
And I think at that point,
undo it, and then
Page's wife had just died. I think he brought in Ted Tinsley or somebody to write the last few Spiders. He couldn't do it anymore. Yeah.
Gary, what do you think? You think that Kirkpatrick knows?
Oh yeah. I mean, yes. I mean, and of course you see this in some of the revisionist stuff with the Spider, and certainly within the comic stuff that Dynamite did. Was it David Liss? I guess David Liss did the modern version of the Spider. Anyway, all that to say is that, I mean, right, in the end, how could this guy keep his job? Right. I mean, every month the Spider's running around, piling up bodies. But that's the point, right? It does make sense that that the character that Kirkpatrick has to say, okay, look, I can use this guy, or I can point this guy in directions that I can't go, and I can get him to, clean this up or clean that up. And if I can do that, maybe I can keep my job, because in the end, what I'm going to do is get rid of a bigger evil. And as long as I can get that done, then Wentworth as the Spider is some use to me.
Awesome. Okay, so there were 7 issues where Kirkpatrick actually became governor of New York State. Would you vote for him?
I don't live in New York State, so it's a non-question.
At the time, if you were living in New York, given his track record at the New York police,
since I don't know who
he's running against the mayor of hell.
It's kind of like modern day politics. Yeah, that's great. That's right.
It's got name recognition.
Exactly. That's right.
So the last character, we all love him, Ram Singh. Wentworth and Ram Singh met when Wentworth was traveling in India. He actually saved Ram Singh and his father, who was the chieftain of the Sikh tribe. And he, of course, they bonded, for life. He's in service to Richard Wentworth, and they go out and they fight. And he also accompanies Richard Wentworth as the Spider, but nobody really thinks that's
nobody seems to notice that.
One of those things that just get waved.
Jenkins is the butler, and Jackson is the chauffeur. What is Ram Singh's job?
Well, I think sometimes he drives around when Ronald Jackson, his name is rarely mentioned, first name is rarely mentioned.
That's right.
But he's kind of got an unclear. He's not really he's not a valet like Cato in the Green Hornet. He's not clearly defined, except if he needs to drive the limo or some other car, he will do that. But I don't remember, and of course I've read all my Spiders over like 40 years or more. I don't remember him having a job. He's kind of like maybe bodyguard in the loose sense.
So on his
manservant of some
on his 1040, he would put bodyguard.
Well, maybe, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that work?
I think that works. I think that works. Certainly in a modernistic setting.
Okay, we're going to talk about the creators of the Spider, characters that we just talked about. You kind of have to include Harry Steger, the publisher, Rogers Terrell, who was the editor in the early issues, R.T.M. Scott, who wrote the first 2 stories, and it might be debatable, I don't know. But wrote the first 2 stories and created the characters. And then, of course, Norval Page, who really made the character what we think of as the Spider today. How would you, and I know you guys have both edited and written, how would you rank these characters in terms of their importance in the creation of the Spider that we're talking about 90 years later?
It's kind of hard to parse it, since without Scott creating a template, using his previous character, Secret Service Smith, as a template, you don't have the same grouping. You don't have the Hindu or Sikh manservant, and you don't have the upper crust hero. Norval Page transformed all that into something that he felt was, compelling for him and compelling for readers, because Scott was an older guy who was popular in the teens and 20s, and he wrote a certain kind of 1920s thriller, whereas Page was more, as a crime journalist, as a newspaperman who worked the police beat, he understood crime firsthand. He talked about, in one of his rare public statements, he talked about riding in the back of a morgue wagon with a murdered hoodlum who'd just been gunned down, put on the spot. Obviously, Steger is the prime mover here. He's the one who said we're going to do a magazine like The Shadow, we're going to call it The Spider. So, okay, that's the trigger point. How much he had input into it in terms of creativity is difficult to say, but generally when you look at publishers or editors, their creativity is to create a skeleton or a framework or a format. Rogers Terrell, his role is unknown. He was the first editor. We know he was into the emotional urgency thing, and Page was perfect for that. We don't know what he brought to the table and what he wanted and what changes he may have wrought in any earlier conceptions. We just know that Secret Service Smith became the Spider, and Norval Page turned it into a more elaborate character, a more fleshed out character, and gradually over the first couple of years, the Spider went from being just a name and a guy with a cigarette lighter made the seal of the Spider, to being an imitation of the Shadow, because gradually they brought in the cloak, the beaked putty nose, the laugh, all the Spider, all the Shadow stuff they couldn't do. They didn't dare rip off in the beginning. They slipped in over time. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does make sense.
But it's certainly the case too that obviously Page, because he's there and because he's right, and again because you got to grind this out every month after month, and whatever personal demons he was putting through his lens, the pulp lens, into the Spider, it's also the case that he deepened the character, right? Yeah. That eventually we do get this backstory about Wentworth. We do get this stuff about him coming out, well, which is also, I guess, certainly similar to the Shadow in that regard, but it's certainly a more, it is a very particular kind of backstory that helps it then, us as the reader, understand something about who that character is when we meet him, or now we've met him, in the 30s.
I think you just answered my next question, which is what makes the Norval Page story special?
Norval Page.
Norval Page, yeah. I would just say, I would just say that, it's very interesting when you look at, I can't even, of course, all the titles kind of merge in my head, but
they're all the same.
No, they're not. No, but they, obviously there's always, the body count is always what the body count is. Yeah. But the threat, like the one where the pigeons will all have bubonic plague, right? And he's going to release the pigeons. I mean, you can't beat that stuff, man. It was just because it always seems very personal. I mean, eventually, the Shadow's battling robots, and Doc Savage is, going to find dinosaurs in a lost land, but that would not be the Spider, right? I mean, the Spider would be these infected pigeons that are going to wipe everybody out in New York City, or we're going to make everybody blind by poisoning the water. Whatever it is, but there seemed like such very much a very Spider kind of story, and because it's the perniciousness, the evil of the plot is so twisted and gnarled that it could only be fought by the Spider.
And one of the things about the Spider villains is they weren't well developed.
Yeah.
They weren't that distinctive in personalities, although there were some, but they were just raw evil.
Yeah, that's right.
Their motivations were just, either I want a lot of money and I'm willing to machine gun 300 people to get it, or I have this revenge motive or this other motive, and I don't care how brutal I have to be. Right. I'm gonna execute on my maniacal aims. Yeah. And he never fleshes out the villains. I mean, it's almost like when it comes to the last chapter, sometimes, who's the villain on this one? I gotta figure this out because I gotta write 2 more chapters. And this guy that was sitting, or maybe I'll put a scene in chapter 4.
Yeah. Right, go back and put his name in there.
Put his name in there.
And then, huge surprise ending.
The reader doesn't care about these things. The reader just wants the violence, the action, the intensity.
That's true. So have you been able to take any lessons from Norval Page's writing and put it into your own work?
Huh. Yes and no. Having now worked a little bit in my golden years in TV on a crime show, one of the things, and it translates from prose to script and back again, which is to say, you always, of course, want to put your main characters through the paces. And you always want to, as they say, up the ante in terms of what it is they're facing. So certainly it's the case, and this is true for all pulp writers, but certainly it is the case with what Page did, which is really a very modernistic thing, which is to say, yes, there is the physical threat to your character, or the physical threat to the loved one, or the city, or people and that the character has to oppose. But it is in dealing with that physical threat that there's an emotional toll taken by the character. I mean, and even toward the end, you start to see that even within Doc Savage, the veneer beneath the veneer, and I guess what Farmer does with him. But I do think that my takeaway from that as a writer is that I actually, just funny, I've just been doing the edits on the sequel to One Shot Harry, so that when my characters do something, it isn't. I can't just dismiss it, right? It's not just, in One Shot Harry, I'm not giving anything away. My character shoots an unarmed man. Now, this is a very nasty unarmed man, but he still shoots the guy in the head, which maybe I guess I stole that from the spider. But he reflects on it, and he's a Korean War vet, so he's already suffering from what they call the shell shock. So the idea that these things reverberate, that you don't just do this one-off and we go merrily along, and in fact within 3 or 4 more chapters, maybe something happens that causes that character to at least pause for a second, to really to think about what they've done, not to immobilize them, not to make them go off and pick daisies, but at least the idea that these things reverberate.
I don't really bring any Norval page to my writing because, one, I'm writing usually in other people's styles and other people's characters a lot. And I don't know that page, I certainly wouldn't want to bring any Norval page to a Tarzan. It'd certainly be wonderful if Norval Page had goes to the Doc Savage and Lester Dennett goes to the Spider. I would love to have read those issues. But beyond that, I don't really see bringing Norval Page stuff to Doc Savage.
That's fair.
So I get my Norval Page energy, channeled when I do a Norval Page Spider, and then I put it aside.
Okay. We should also we don't really have time to talk about all the other authors that worked in there. Obviously, Page did the most of the novels and had the early period that we all think is classic. I also, myself, appreciate the later period where he had more sort of domestic, there was a lot of continuity between the characters, getting married and different things. But let's talk about the artists really quickly, if I can get to the next slide. It's not letting me go to the next slide. It's probably loading something. Anyway, yeah, there they are. John Newton Howard and Rafael DeSoto. Preference?
I like DeSoto's stuff better because he tended to do paintings that were more action-oriented. Howard's stuff always made me feel like it was a job. He had to put some elements together. I mean, that's a dime store Halloween mask.
Yeah.
He didn't put any effort into that.
Yeah.
And and the scenes are kind of sorted. I mean, they're fun, but I just it doesn't feel like he put the same kind of thought or energy into it. It felt like he was slumming. He knew he was slumming. He needed to make the money. So, okay, they want these elements, I'll put them in. And that's how we got those things. Right. DeSoto seemed more like, to create paintings where action and stuff is happening and it reflects the story.
He had a blowtorch, for God's sake. Yeah.
Top of the Statue of Liberty.
Exactly.
The other thing that's interesting about DeSoto is he starts with these kind of like mid shots of action, and then actually starts doing covers that are more like his more sophisticated Black Mask stuff. You get closer and closer to the characters.
Probably the art director is saying we need to pump up these covers.
Yeah. You even get that kind of like floating head above the action, like Avenger type cover.
That's right.
Occasionally,
because the spider sees all and knows all.
Absolutely. So my last question, with our last remaining minute, is what does the spider look like? Because when we see the cover, he's got the black domino mask, and then inside he has the hooked nose, he's got the hunch. Maybe a better question is, when you guys are reading the spider, how do you see the spider? And shout out to John Fleming Gould, who did the interior illustrations for the spider for most of the run, except for the last year. He actually drew the spider as the spider that we think of.
The image I get is whatever Norval Page or the writer is describing him, which varied quite a bit. Sometimes he wore a steel mask that looked like the spider with the fangs and the nose. Sometimes he put on other kinds, a mask with a skirt, domino mask with a skirt to cover his face. That's another reason why I didn't care for Howard's covers that much, because he wasn't reflecting how the spider looked.
Right. There were 7 covers that had this actual spider painted by DeSoto.
Right.
I'll just flip through these. Gary, what do you see when you read a spider?
I recall vividly passage in one of the Page novels where Wentworth essentially goes through this physical transformation, right? The nose and the fangs, but that is very his very posture and the crooked walk, and that I always thought that was just great, because then that just said so much about him transforming into this other creature, right? In fact, the point being this creature of vengeance, this thing on a mission. And that Wentworth no longer existed. It is only the spider, and the spider physically is just distinct and different from Richard Wentworth. So yeah, so really the more monstrous, the better for me.
I'm with him.
Yeah.
Awesome. The whole panel's in agreement. I think that's our time, and I wish we could take questions from the audience, but we will wrap it up.
Chris, you got 4 minutes.
What? I have 4 minutes?
4 minutes.
You have 4
Oh my
minutes.
God!
You have time
Should
for
we
a
take
couple of questions.
Oh my God! I have like 60 more slides, but let's go to the floor.
I was going to ask real quick, do you think a visit to Doc Savage's crime college would have helped him?
But I don't think Doc would have wiped Wentworth's memory, because I think that would have been a little extreme for Doc.
But he's a criminal.
Yeah.
Well, but he's got, what do you do with him after that? He's well known.
Right.
He's got a fiance.
Right.
He's a millionaire. He might have relatives. We don't know. There's some, he's just not.
He's a prominent citizen. Yeah, criminologist. Yeah, that's right.
It would be. He could maybe do some things, but he couldn't do everything he wanted to. He wouldn't wipe the memory.
And by the way, even if he did, wouldn't it be great that in some kind of strange and weird way he would still come to embody being the spider?
With our last couple minutes, how did you guys discover the spider? Was it these
That
paperbacks?
thing right there
Yeah.
with the wrapper.
That's right.
With the 2-for-1 wrapper?
Yeah, I still have that wrapper somewhere.
And these are the other two books. This is the Berkeley.
That's right.
paperbacks?
Those are the editions I stumbled on.
We can't forget the pocketbook. Paperbacks.
That's right.
With the white turtleneck.
Right.
I did find a preliminary sketch where Robert McGuire, fantastic artist, had drawn the spider in his spidery guise. But unfortunately, we didn't get to see McGuire do that. I love McGuire's work.
Really?
Otherwise,
Yeah.
of course, McGuire's work was adapted in Britain, where he's got at least darker hair and a more sensible dark turtleneck, a still turtleneck. And of course, this is how I discovered the spider, which was there was a great little blurb in Starlog magazine that promoted Scourge of the Seal Mask G8 and the third book of the Spider, The Prince of Evil. Picked him up at the B. Dalton, and the rest is history.
Right on.
And of course, read these amazing Carolyn Graff selection of stories after college in 1990, and of course, can't not mention Jim Steranko's contribution to the most recent mass market effort. And new fiction, I just got to put these up for these guys. Spider Chronicles, Spider Extreme Prejudice, with the contributors from the panel here, and of course Will Murray's 3 books. He might have some copies at his table.
Yeah, I have some of these. I'm not sure how many in what states, but I did bring some.
Okay, come by, and that's it.
All right.
Go back to the Berkeley one.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Both of you guys got them, because I did too.
Yeah.
Let me ask you. I saw that little. So I went to the bookstore, and they had this thing, 2-for-1.
Yeah.
2 for the price of 1. And they wouldn't give me it. They wouldn't give me it. They charged me 60
cents for each book.
Well,
what about you guys?
Well, they know a sucker when they see one.
I went to a little corner variety, and the guy looked at this like he didn't know anything about it, and he saw what it said. So
there you go.
All right, how about you? Did you get it?
No. In the South Central, we got the spider on the spinner rack, and it was just the individual. But maybe they had the 2-for-1, but they certainly took it off, and they still charge us. Yeah.
I probably paid like $50 for the white paper wrapper on eBay.
There we go.
I think they tore mine off at the store.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But they were wrapped like that.
Right.
What do you mean? It says 60.
Right.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks for the
That's
panel.
great.
You've been listening to a Pulp Event podcast brought to you by the Pulp Net. your link to the online world of the pulp magazines for over 25 years. Learn more about the pulp magazines through articles, blogs, bibliographies, links, over 100 episodes of this podcast, and much more at thepulp.net. Also, look for the PulpNet on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Thank you for listening, and keep reading the pulps. This Pulp Event podcast is copyright 2023 by William P. Lampkin. All rights reserved.